Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the story of someone who is so much more than a racing driver. We're talking about a legend, a myth, a true force of nature, Ayrton Senna.
So how does a person become a legend like that? Well, to really get it, we have to go all the way back to his pretty unlikely start. See, he wasn't just born a champion. He was, in a lot of ways, forged by contradiction.
So, our story doesn't even start on a racetrack. It starts in São Paulo, with a young boy who was, well, kind of full of contradictions. A kid who would one day completely redefine what we thought was possible for a human being inside a machine.
Okay, so get this. Senna's greatness, it wasn't just handed to him. In fact, it was forged against this huge physical challenge. As a kid, he actually struggled with really poor motor coordination. But the second you put him behind the wheel of a car, he was a total natural. And it's this massive contrast, right, between his physical struggles and this raw, God-given talent that really defined his whole career. It was all about pure will.
And that will, it was just relentless. He was obsessed with mastering his weaknesses, especially in the rain. Think about it. Most drivers, they see rain and head for cover. Senna, he ran towards the storm. The rain became his thing, you know? It's where that crazy obsession of his turned into pure genius.
So he packs up and moves to England in '81 and boom, he just dominates the junior formulas, right from the get-go. But the path wasn't that simple. His family was pressuring him to come back to Brazil, join the family business, and for a minute there, he actually quit. But you know that feeling, that pull, the call of the racetrack, that need to push the limits, it was just too strong. He couldn't ignore it. It took just a few months before he was right back.
And his return to racing, well, it led to this one incredible moment. A moment that basically shouted to the world that a brand new force had just arrived in Formula One. And honestly, the sport was never going to be the same.
So picture this, Monaco, 1984. It's pouring rain. We're on the hardest track in the entire world, and this nobody rookie, in one of the slowest cars on the grid, is hunting down the champion, Ayrton Prost. He's making the best drivers in the world look like they're standing still. Now, the race gets controversially stopped, so he officially places second, but it didn't matter. The message was sent loud and clear. A new god of speed was here.
And that race kicked off what would become maybe the greatest rivalry in F1 history. His battle with his own McLaren teammate, Ayrton Prost, man, it wasn't just a competition. It was a war of philosophies. It was instinct versus intellect, raw passion versus cold precision. They were on the same team, sure, but they might as well have been from different planets.
You want to know how different? Okay, so check this out. Qualifying Monaco 1988. Senna is more than 2 seconds faster than Prost in the exact same car. In Formula One, a gap like that isn't just big, it's impossible. It just shouldn't happen. And this is where it gets really deep. That moment, it showed us something about Senna's connection to driving. He later described that lap as this out-of-body experience, like he was in a trance and he and the car were just one thing. He was operating at a level that was so far beyond normal that, in his own words, it actually frightened him. Of course, a rivalry this intense, it was bound to boil over. And it did, in two of the most controversial championship showdowns F1 has ever seen. 1989 Japan, Prost straight up turns in on Senna to take the title. So what happens 1 year later at the exact same track? Senna gets his revenge. He drives Prost right off the road in the very first corner to win his title. I mean, it was brutal, it was uncompromising, and it was absolute must-see TV. But, you know, outside the car, Senna was so much more than a driver. He was a national hero. At a time when Brazil was really struggling, he was this shining symbol of hope. He was proof that one of them could go out and conquer the world. And for Senna himself, racing was never just a sport. It was a metaphor for life, a way to discover who he really was.
But then we get to 1994. The sport had gone through a bunch of rule changes, and the cars, they were just more dangerous, more unpredictable, and a dark shadow started to fall over everything.
That season brought them to Imola for a weekend that just felt cursed from the very beginning. On Friday, a terrifying crash. Then on Saturday, the first driver death in Formula One in 12 years. The whole paddock was just completely in shock. Senna was totally devastated by the death of Roland Ratzenberger. He was visibly shaken, and he told a friend he just had this terrible feeling about the next day's race. Think about that. This is the man who lived for speed, who danced on the edge of danger his whole life, and now he was feeling a kind of fear he couldn't even explain.
And then, lap 7. The unthinkable happens. For reasons that people still debate to this day, his car veers off the track at one of the fastest corners. He was 34 years old. The news sent this massive shockwave that was felt all around the world.
But the tragedy of Senna's death, that wasn't the end of his story. In a strange way, it was really the beginning of his immortality.
Just look at this number. An estimated 3 million people line the streets of São Paulo for his funeral. It's one of the biggest public outpourings of grief in modern history. This wasn't a country saying goodbye to a sportsman. This was a nation mourning the loss of its brightest, most brilliant star.
And then there was this, in what has to be one of the most powerful gestures of respect you'll ever see in sports. His greatest rival, Alain Prost, served as a pallbearer at the funeral. The war was finally over, and in the end, all that was left was this incredible respect for the only other man who could ever truly push him to his limits.
And his legacy is incredible. His death became the catalyst for a huge safety revolution in F1. He was the last driver to die during a race. His foundation has helped educate millions of kids in Brazil, and to this day, his name is spoken with this almost holy reverence by generation after generation of drivers.
So that brings us to the big question, right? Why does this driver who died 3 decades ago still feel so present? I think it's because his story was never really just about the numbers or the trophies. It was about something much bigger. It was about this relentless, almost spiritual quest to find the absolute limits of what a human being is capable of.
He wasn't just trying to win races. He was trying to understand himself by pushing himself to the very edge of what was possible. And by living his life so fully, so completely, he left this immortal mark not just on his sport, but on an entire nation. And it's why, all these years later, the world still can't seem to let him go.